Garmin started with SiriusXM on, the iconic GPS map portable series some time ago. And then along came, ADSB in weather and traffic. And so naturally, we just said, let's just combine, all the benefits of both services into a single product. And let's not force anybody to compromise anymore.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for episode 62 of the Aviation News Talk podcast, where we bring you general aviation news and relevant information and tips that pilots like you can use. I'm your host, Max Truscott. Today, we're talking about ADSB, or Automated Dependent Surveillance Broadcast, and a portable ADSB device that you can buy that shows both traffic and weather. And we'll also talk about some new weather products you'll soon be able to receive over ADSB starting in June. And to help with all that, we'll be talking with Joey Ferrara. He's the Aviation Marketing Manager at Garmin. And as always, stick around to the end of the show for bloopers. Now, if you're joining us for the first time, we have a weekly show that focuses on general aviation news. And on each show, I've discussed a particular pilot skill. For example, last week in episode 61, we talked about preventing airplane accidents and the importance of the go-around maneuver. But occasionally, we also drop in an interview episode like this one today. And if you really enjoy this show and afterwards are craving just a little extra content, you can go out to our Patreon website for free, where you'll find various links and other interesting stories that I post on the blog portion of that site. And while you're there looking around, if you feel like you'd like to help support this show, you can sign up to make a small monthly donation that will be billed to your credit card. When you do that, you'll get a couple of emails every week alerting you to breaking news stories and other contents that I post there between episodes. To get to the Patreon site, just go to aviationnewstalk.com/awesome, or if you click on the artwork of your podcast player, you can find a link to the Patreon site in our show notes. Now here's my conversation with Joey Ferreyra. And now let me tell you a little bit about Joey Ferreyra. Joey works for Garmin, a high-tech company that specializes in GPS technology for use in a lot of different markets, including automotive, marine, outdoor, and sports activities. But of course, most pilots know Garmin as the leading manufacturer for avionics for general aviation aircraft. Now, Joey works as their aviation marketing manager, and he's based at their headquarters in Olathe, Kansas, which is just outside of Kansas City, Missouri, and he's worked there for over 8 years now. Now, not surprisingly, Joey is also a pilot, and he's in the process of building a Vans RV-10, which I'm guessing will have a lot of Garmin avionics in it. He's also a commercial pilot and has an instrument rating and about 400 hours of total time in various single-engine aircraft. And best of all, he says he's slowly working on his certificate to become a flight instructor. And I'm going to see what I can do to try and speed that up for him, because we need more flight instructors. So, Joey, welcome to Aviation News Talk Podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Max. Yeah, I'm excited to be on the show and honored to be a guest. I really love what you're doing for the industry and folks like me that are continuing to learn a little bit more every day about flying.
Well, that was great to hear from you about 6 months ago when you said you listened to the show, and that kind of began of multiple conversations that you and I have had. But I want to find out first more about you. Let's kind of go back to the beginning. Did you get the aviation bug early? And if so, tell us about, growing up in aviation.
Sure, yeah. So it was a fun thinking this back through. It's been a while since I've told the story, but I got the bug early on. It was actually a Cape Air flight that we flew in a small twin Cessna 402 from Puerto Rico to St. Thomas. And I just remember I was in my early 20s at the time, and the pilot came out that was going to fly us over there, and he was a younger gentleman, and I couldn't help but think to myself, gosh, what a great job he's got flying, airplanes in the Caribbean. I'd love to do something similar to that. So almost immediately, going back from that vacation, came back to Kansas City and started flying, and then just slowly over time building, hours and my certificates and ratings.
Alrighty. So tell us what you did after high school and how you came ultimately to Garmin.
Sure. Yes. So after high school, it's a bit of a backward story. I ended up in telecommunications immediately and delayed college there initially, and was installing telecommunications infrastructure around the U.S. And I came back a couple years later and worked on my degree while also working, and at that point found the niche for and my passion for flying. And so I thought that as opposed to talking about phones all day long, that I wanted to talk about airplanes all day long. And So anyways, so I met my current boss, Jim, through a neighbor of mine a few years back, and he was gracious enough to keep me on his radar for the time being. And when an opportunity came up at Garmin, he considered me for it, and we were able to find something that met my background and skills and marketing that I was able to bring, and of course my passion for flying and aviation.
And I'm sure there are a lot of pilots out there who'd love to be able to switch into an aviation-related job. So tell us what your job title is and what kinds of things you work on at Garmin.
Absolutely. Yep. So as you mentioned, there's several markets within Garmin. And so my job is marketing from a global aviation perspective. So I just focus on aviation here. And so my responsibilities range everywhere from the strategy and execution around each of our individual, what I call almost sub-markets, because we, as many folks may know, we serve everything from experimental aircraft, again, which is something that I'm working on and very passionate about, all the way up through commercial and defense solutions. So we have a very wide market and breadth of folks that we're communicating to and solutions that we offer. So my job is really to make sure that we're talking appropriately to each one of these and through various means of communications, whether that's print and digital advertisement and placements and trade shows, of course. So we got Oshkosh coming up, so that's top of mind for me at the moment, as well as some others that we're excited about with Farnborough and others that we're attending. So it's quite a bit of work, but we've got a great team here that is really supportive and helps out tremendously to get all the things that we need to communicate out the door.
Now, there's a pretty wide range of Garmin aviation products, all the way from, $100,000 type glass cockpit installations, down to sub $1,000 portables. Are you responsible for the entire breadth of all those aviation products?
I am, yes.
Wow. Okay. Now, I know some folks always kind of confuse the difference between marketing and sales, and they might think that you're doing sales. Tell us kind of about your day-to-day kinds of activities in the marketing world.
Sure. So, just this morning, quite literally, was looking at graphics and positioning and messaging as they would appear on the side of our exhibit at Farnborough, for example. So just making sure that everything is representative and would look and feel and represent Garmin and appeal to the marketplace and best position our solutions. So that's just one example this morning that I was looking through. But again, others are, things from our web presence, which we have a dedicated person that helps us there. But we help guide very specific direction on how to position the product. So understanding all the considerations of how the product, competes in the marketplace and making sure that we're well positioned to communicate, what our founders actually said really well, which is the why Garmin effectively.
Now, do you also get involved in kind of market research and trying to help define what future products the engineering team should be building?
So a little bit less on the product development side specifically. So oftentimes by the time it gets to me, the product is fairly well mature and defined at that point. Mm-hmm. So a little bit less on the product development side. We do, of course, as we get into product marketing, and there's something that we catch in some of our evaluations and market analysis that may not have been caught. Of course, we'll provide that feedback and see if there's opportunity to make an improvement to help better position our products.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about ADS-B. I think most pilots are starting to come to understand it, but I'm sure there's some out there who don't. Can you just kind of give us a kind of broad brush of, what is ADS-B?
Yeah, sure. So ADS-B is automatic dependent surveillance broadcast. And simply put, it's going to be required by all of us by the end of 2019. So I know we think about 2020 is a number that's thrown out around there, but it's really January 1st, 2020. So what we like to convey and communicate is by December 31st, 2019, you've got to be equipped with ADS-B out to fly in effectively any controlled airspace, in and around controlled airspace, anywhere you need a Mode C transponder today. And so what ADS-B is effectively is, as opposed to ground-based radar infrastructure that's tracking each and every aircraft, we're transitioning to a space-based system where we're using GPS position, which is very high integrity. So it's very accurate, extremely accurate, and it's going to feed that position every second back down to air traffic controllers. So this will allow for us to continue to transition and allow more capacity in our airspace system.
So I think sometimes pilots get a little confused about the difference between ADS-B in and ADS-B out. Tell us what's required and what's optional when people are coming to install ADS-B in their aircraft.
Sure, absolutely. So ADS-B out is what's required by year-end 2019. And that's what we just talked about, where you're taking your WASP position, high-integrity GPS position source, and sending that via transponder to air traffic control every second. So that's the requirement. And then ADS-B in are all the great things that we enjoy in the cockpit with data link weather and traffic coming right into your displays, either in the format of and your installed displays like your navigators or your flight displays that are installed, and some portable products like tablets and Garmin portables are some other examples. And these are all the great features that we're getting with data link weather and traffic.
So I think a lot of people, when they look at ADS-B traffic, think, wow, that's all the traffic that's out there. I'm seeing it all displayed. Can you talk about some of the limitations, why there are going to be things that they're not actually seeing?
Sure. Yeah. So I think an episode or two ago, I think you explained it extremely well with regard to that limitation. But I think the important thing to note there is specifically when you're not ADS-B out equipped, you're not seeing an entire picture of all of the ADS-B traffic in your specific area. You're effectively would be like a parasite on the system where you're not participating with ADS-B out and you're using somebody else's data link of ADS-B in traffic. And so that picture is customized for someone else's aircraft, and it's not customized for you. If you can imagine a 30 nautical mile ring around someone else's aircraft that's participating and receiving a customized picture of traffic, then you're effectively getting that picture of traffic somewhere within their ring, but you're not necessarily sure where that may be. So you may not have complete coverage, and the only way to guarantee complete coverage is to make sure that you're ADS-B out equipped.
Now, of course, one other way we could get complete traffic would be if the FAA chose to upload all the data to the entire country. Any idea if they'll ever go ahead and expand that beyond what they're doing, or do you think for a long time we're just going to be limited to seeing traffic surrounding ADS-B out only aircraft?
Yeah, that's a great question, Max. And honestly, I don't have privy to understand where things are at with that. I've not heard of any change on that policy being pursued or adopted.
Sure. Well, it would really be great if they would go ahead and broadcast all the data. But in the meantime, we've got that limitation. And if nothing else, that's a great incentive for people to make sure they get ADS-B out so they can actually see all of the ADS-B in traffic.
Certainly.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the GDL 52. You contacted me, about 6 months ago and asked me if I would like to try it out and evaluate it, which I have been doing for a while and having great fun doing it. Let's just kind of talk in general about that product and how it differs from other ADS-B receivers.
Absolutely, yeah. So I have to do a little bit of history and background here. Garmin started with SiriusXM on, the iconic GPS map portable series some time ago, and then along came, ADS-B in weather and traffic, and so for a long time we've been, those two solutions and portable products. If you can think of our GPS map products and even the current portable products having what we would call like the puck that you put on the top of the glare shield, and then now we've added this ADS-B product to get additional weather and traffic information and other flight information services like NOTAMs, et cetera, that are being broadcast. So you can take advantage of both. And so naturally, we just said, let's just combine all the benefits of both services into a single product, and let's not force anybody to compromise anymore if they're choosing one product over another. So that's how the GDL 52 was effectively born, and it combines both the products and services, and they both have really great attributes. So pilots no longer have to choose between either service.
And I certainly remember, if you go back not that many years ago, most pilots would carry a portable GPS prior to the advent of iPhones and iPads and things like that with built-in GPS. And often those portable GPSs had XM weather. So I think pilots from 10 years ago were extremely familiar with that. I'm not so sure that current day pilots are quite as familiar with the SiriusXM weather. What are some of the advantages of SiriusXM weather versus ADS-B? Because obviously you can get some free weather products over ADS-B with an ADS-B receiver, but how does SiriusXM distinguish itself?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the best way to think about it is that they're just two different services. And so the best way is to kind of compare and contrast between the two. And when someone at Oshkosh would approach me with this sort of question, what we would share would be that SiriusXM is a fantastic tool to getting with the weather benefits in some other parts of the U.S. and continental U.S. is like the Bahamas and places like this where you may not have great ADS-B coverage. And it's also available when you're on the ground. So oftentimes you'll get SiriusXM, given its satellite-based nature, you'll get that on the ground before you take off. And for a lot of pilots, if you're flying, especially in instrument-type conditions, this is really important to understand what the weather is doing well ahead of their departure. So that's a really good strength and benefit of SiriusXM. And with ADS-B, they've got some unique products, like I mentioned earlier. They've got NOTAMs as one example. So they've got a couple different features that are unique to its service capability. And you're often going to get this service when you're flying above 1,500 feet in the continental U.S. and Alaska and some other locations as well. So they're really two different services, and they're very complementary, because not only with the ADS-B do you get the weather, but you also then get the good picture of traffic there, of course, caveated based on how we talked about your ADS-B out equipage. So there's really a great place for both solutions. And then, going back real quick to SiriusXM, you've got the audio capability for, long cross countries and these sorts of things as well.
There's no question. I think SiriusXM audio is just outstanding. I've always enjoyed listening to that. I think many of us have our favorite channels, and there's nothing more relaxing on a really long trip than to listen to audio in the cockpit. And so you can certainly, I guess, go back and forth between the two receivers, and let's look at ADS-B weather, look at SiriusXM weather. Tell us how people do that. How do they switch between that and look at the weather products?
Sure, absolutely. So it's all built into the display. So whether you're using, tablet, either your iOS or Android tablets with Garmin Pilot, or if you're using a portable like our Garmin AHRS 660, provides the option for pilots to switch back and forth between which service they're displaying, so they can compare and contrast between the two if they like, where there's opportunity and there's not overlapping products. It displays the best source available.
And let's talk a little bit about the Garmin Pilot. I tried both here. I did use the AHRS 660 display, which small portable GPS, and then I used Garmin Pilot on the iPad. Now, my iPad experience was probably better because I've got a much larger screen, a little bit easier, I thought, to navigate. Why don't you tell us about what Garmin Pilot is and what tablets could be used on and things like that?
Absolutely, yeah. So Garmin Pilot, it can be used on your iOS device, your iPads, iPhones, etc., as well as Android devices as well. And so Garmin Pilot's a fantastic application, all the way from, I'd say, pre-flight planning, so you can do your flight plan routing, file your flight plan. Then once you're done there, you're able to just hop in the aircraft and let's say you have a navigator installed, you're able to wirelessly, send your flight plan up to your navigator or G1000 integrated flight decks, some other more modern ones. And then while you're in flight as well, you're able to exchange data with the avionics or devices like the GDL 52, so you can get current up-to-date weather information as it relates to your flight and flight plan. And then even post-flight, we're logging all the data either from the tablet, or the GDL 52 actually does some flight data logging as well that we're in beta testing now on and working to refine. But flight data logging is an important product for us, and you're able to review those in Fly Garmin and visualize your flights after the flight as well. And then one of the features that I love the most is the digital logbook. So I have my entire logbook basically on my phone. And what I love so much about it is when you're filling out, let's say your insurance forms or what have you, it will crunch the data of all your flights based on how you need it. So it's a really powerful tool throughout the entire flight profile, if you will.
Yeah, and I think probably, let me just make a comparison here. I think a lot of pilots these days are very familiar with ForeFlight. To me, Garmin does essentially all the same things that ForeFlight does. And if I kind of compare them, it seems like one will have some features the other doesn't have. And, you folks are constantly kind of taking leadership roles in terms of what new features you're bringing out. My experience was when I used Garmin Pilot going across the country, I thought that your dedicated traffic page was outstanding. So I don't see that in some of the other mapping type products, but I could switch to a view where it was essentially white on black, white traffic targets on a black background with concentric rings that showed me exactly how many miles out to each of the targets. And I really like that because when I'm working in congested area, like here in the San Francisco Bay Area, there are times when I'll have, believe it or not, 8 different targets within a couple of miles of me. And it just makes it so much easier to identify all that information, all those different targets, and not have lots of other data on the screen at the same time. And I saw that you've also got the same kind of setup in the AHRS 660 display as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the traffic page, and we just released an update as we're talking about updates as well. We just released an update where we enhanced that dedicated traffic page, specifically on Garmin Pilot. And with all the rich information that we receive from ADS-BN, as we've talked about, position reports from other aircraft and from the ground infrastructure effectively every second, we're able to provide some fantastic and industry unique features. And actually, one of my favorite features is Garmin's target trend technology. And you may have experienced this, but specifically in congested and dense situations with lots of other aircraft, it gives you what would be a stinger out in front of your aircraft, and it bends that stinger with regard to where they're going to end up compared to your position. So instantly, the pilot is able to understand what we're having to do in the past with traditional traffic displays, which is effectively just a straight stinger out of their aircraft positions, and do the vector math in your head. And I'm not very good at vector math. So this basically does it for you and provides you an instant understanding of which of those targets are actually a concern or hazard to your aircraft.
Yeah, so traditionally there is, as you said, a stinger that's out in front of all aircraft and kind of shows them where they're going. Now, let's suppose that we had 2 aircraft that were going to converge. Where's the stinger on that other aircraft point?
Well, it depends on where they're actually headed over the ground based on your position. So let's use a scenario like where you're following somebody, your assigned visual contact, following somebody in on the pattern, and you're able to see based on their stinger can also come behind their aircraft. Let's say that you're going to overtake them and you're too fast. The target trend technology would illustrate that with the stinger, their stinger coming out behind their aircraft if you were going to overtake them, you would then indicate you'd need to slow down to make sure you keep pace and flow in the traffic pattern.
Wow, that's pretty handy, certainly for those of us that are flying faster aircraft and are, often overrunning smaller planes in front of us. Yeah, so I found that, let's see, the trend vector, I guess, changes length a little bit depending upon which map range I was on. If I was in a 2-mile range, then it would extend 30 seconds. And if I was 12-mile range, it would show 2 minutes and stuff like that. So that's really made it easy to kind of see the direction of the aircraft at the different map ranges. Now, one of the things I really love with ADS-BN is just being able to select a function that allows me to see the call signs of the other aircraft. And that I think is pretty handy because now you can kind of instantly tell, hey, is that other airplane coming at you, another GA aircraft, or is that, FedEx DC-10 coming at you?
Sure. Yep. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, we've got a wealth of information there, like the tail numbers there that really provide a lot more detail than you'd ever had before. Like you mentioned, looking at some of the FedEx aircraft or your friend's aircraft that you're flying in to meet up with, you've got a lot of information available.
Yeah, I've actually taken pictures of the screen when I've seen a friend's aircraft going by and sent it to him. It's like, hey, here you are in flight. We passed. It's certain point of time. Now, initially, the very first time I used this, I was on a trip coming out of Tennessee, and didn't realize initially that I had it configured in normal mode. So in the normal mode, it's only looking at plus and minus a few thousand feet. And I was comparing that to the traffic on our Cirrus, and I thought, wow, I'm seeing all this traffic on the Cirrus that I'm not seeing here with the Atsb in receiver. And then what I realized was, I needed to switch to unrestricted mode. Now, here's the surprising thing. When I did that using the GDL 52, I was now seeing more traffic than I was even seeing on the Cirrus, because the Cirrus limited the traffic to plus and minus 10,000 feet. Now I was looking at aircraft, all the way up, 35,000 feet.
Sure.
So let's change gears. We've talked a lot about traffic. Let's talk a little bit more about weather. I know one of the differences between, for example, radar, which has got to be the most popular weather product that people use, whether they use ADS-B or XM. My understanding is that with ADS-B, as you start looking out more than perhaps 500 miles, the resolution goes down.
Yes, you're right there. So, and that's another really good differentiator between the two services, and this is due to a limitation on the bandwidth that is being used to broadcast all of these great services that we're using over ADS-B. So, to help keep the data link broadcasting and not to bog it down, they're only giving a limited picture of high resolution weather. As opposed to weather across the entire U.S. And again, so when you're talking about higher performing aircraft and 500 nautical miles, you can get through some of that quicker. You may want weather that's even further out. With the product like SiriusXM, you're going to get that high resolution data link across the entire U.S.
And speaking of weather, I guess there's some new weather products that are coming out for ADS-B. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of the buzz lately here is that the FAA has announced within the last handful of months here that it's going to be rolling out some new weather products. And these weather products include lightning, turbulence, cloud tops, icing, and center weather advisories, as well as graphical air met. So these will be added to the existing feature lineup of the weather products that are available today. And so the plan is as I understand it, talking with our engineering team, is that these will be rolled out over time, starting actually in the West Coast and then working their way to the East.
And so all your products are in the process of being updated to be able to display that?
You bet. Yeah. So products like the GDL 52 and then our installed products, ADS-B out, as well as in products like the GTX 345 transponder. Products like these are already ready to accept the new weather products. Where we're having to work and what we're working on today is updating the software in our various display products. So we're actually working towards updates with Garmin Pilot. Should be quicker around the Oshkosh timeframe. Look for an update from us there. The AHRS 660 and G3X Touch in our experimental product line should follow on later on late this year. And then so for more of our certificated products that are panel mounted and type certificated aircraft like the G500 TXI series and G600 TXI, as well as the GTN series display products, we'll look to the first half of next year to get software complete, as well as then certified for update to start to receive those new weather products.
Okay. And let's just kind of wrap up on some of the details here on the GDL 52. I know it includes built-in GPS and also an AHRS. How does that AHRS get used?
GDL 52, the attitude and heading reference system that's built inside of it, provides basic attitude information, pitch and roll information to either your tablet or your Garmin portable like the AHRS 660, and it will power a really rich synthetic vision technology on both of those products, where it effectively is just drawing a 3D view of the terrain and obstacles around your environment, and then your aircraft's position and attitude as it relates to that. So where that's really valuable is, say you have an emergency type situation and you were to lose your primary attitude instruments, it would be a fantastic tool, especially if you're flying in the clouds, let's say, to have as a backup reference to help you through that situation.
And let's talk a little bit about pricing and what kind of free goodies that come along with it.
Absolutely. So there's a series of products. So the GDL 52 is the top end, where it combines both the SiriusXM and ADS-B, and it's priced at $1,199. And today, SiriusXM is offering a $200 rebate on the product. And they're also offering 3 months of SiriusXM's mid-tier package with an audio subscription when you sign up for service. So they'll give those first 3 months to you complimentary with the product. And then, like I mentioned, we've got a GDL 51 that's just SiriusXM only, available for $699. Also has a $200 rebate. And then we've got a GDL 50, which is just the ADS-B portion of it, for $849.
Got it. And that $1,199 price on GDL 52, is that before or after rebate?
That is before, so effectively bringing the price down to just under $1,000.
Wow, $999 then. Okay, that's a pretty nice price point considering you've got both receivers in there. And what if people wanted to try Garmin Pilot for free? How would that work?
Yeah, sure. So also in all of those packages comes a free 3-month trial. But if you're interested in Garmin Pilot today, just search in the Apple App Store or the Android store, respectively, there, and search for Garmin Pilot, and you can trial it for 1 month complimentary today.
Okay. And I'm sure there are people who are still looking for more information about ADS-B. What does Garmin offer in terms of webinars and seminars and things like that people can find online?
Yeah, we've got a handful of tools. We've been educating on ADS-B for some time now. We've got a great web resource called the Atsb Academy, and folks can get there going to garmin.com/ADSB. And we also offer webinars as well. And the best place to get and keep up to date on which webinars are happening where are our web presence. If you go to garmin.com/aviation, towards the bottom of the page, you'll see links to our webinars and our seminars if you're going to be in your area. If there's a Garmin representative that will be in your area at a dealer, they'd love to talk to you there. You'll see that there. And then I'd encourage everyone to sign up for our newsletter. Each month, you'll get updates on the webinars as well as software updates and other news from Garmin as well. So you'd get all that bundled up to you and delivered in your inbox each month if you signed up for our newsletters.
Okay, great information about the GDL 52 and the other products in that family. We'll have more links to that here in the show notes. But before we wrap up, got to hear about that RV10. Tell us all about that.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about the RV10. We're making really good progress on it. We've got the tail section complete and the fuselage, and they're mated together, so it's looking like an airplane. And with the talented folks around here, I was able to put together a SolidWorks file of our dream panel layout, and actually was able to position that in the panel and kind of make some airplane noises while I was sitting actually in the cockpit without the seats and everything, which was a lot of fun. So it's coming along quite well, and hopefully we'll have some more updates and progress by the end of the year. First flight, first power on. Some of these key milestones we're excited about.
Super. And I'm guessing this is not going to have 6 round gauges and just a VOR receiver. Tell us what you're going to have in the panel there.
Sure. So looking at installing a G3X Touch, which is our integrated flight display system for experimental aircraft. And it's a fantastic system. We're going to try to squeeze, working on Rev 2, but I'm hoping to squeeze 3 10-inch displays in the panel there with the GTN 750, which is our IFR navigator. So that'll make us legal to fly instruments as well. So trying to keep it, my goal with the panel is to, keep it as clean as possible and as few as switches as possible, and really just minimize the amount of things and activities that are required of the pilot in the cockpit with as much technology as we possibly can.
Sounds like you are having way too much fun with that. And so for folks who are out there listening who are working day jobs that are not aviation related, was this worth the transition?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I think you hosted Joe Gepner. He's one of our very talented software engineers, actually working on the team that develops our products for the experimental aircraft realm. But he said it best. It's tough to tell when your job stops and your interests begin, and that's absolutely true. It's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm sitting here grinning, frankly, thinking about all my days in corporate America and how much more fun I'm having actually right now doing aviation-related kinds of things. So what do we need to do to help get you to become a flight instructor?
Oh gosh, time. I've got my knowledge test completed, and so now I'm working on the fundamentals of instruction. So just baby steps. But I've got that on pause as I'm working through, the RV10 and the panel and all those details. So I am very much chipping away. But however, the clock is ticking now that I've completed and passed my knowledge test. So I'm hopeful within the next year and about 9 months or so that I'm talking to you about being a CFI.
Well, good. That'll be fantastic. It'd be great to have you out there in the pattern with the rest of us.
Absolutely.
Well, Joey, thanks so much today for spending time with us. This has really been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah. Thanks for having me on the show. Again, I really appreciate what you do for the community and keeping us all informed and educated.
Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Well, my thanks to Joey and to Garmin for lending me the GDL 52 portable SiriusXM and Atsb receiver and the Era 660 display for a few months. I really enjoyed using both of them on some of my long trips across the country, and I'm going to miss not having them on my next trip, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. Now, Joey mentioned a couple of resources. One was Garmin's Atsb Academy, and another was for upcoming Garmin seminars and webinars. And you can find those links on our show notes at aviationnewstalk.com or by tapping on the artwork of the podcast player of your smartphone. You'll also find a link in the show notes to the Amazon webpage where you can purchase the GDL 52 if you're interested. And when I looked there just a few minutes ago, the price was $1,149, and you could get free delivery if you're an Amazon Prime customer. And yes, if you use that link when you order, I will earn a small fee from Amazon, for which I thank you. And by the way, I looked up the details of that $200 rebate from SiriusXM that Joey mentioned. It says if you purchase any new eligible aviation satellite weather receiver from January 1 to December 31 of 2018 and activate it with any SiriusXM aviation weather subscription package by December 31, 2018, and this is in all capital letters, and maintain 60 days of continuous paid service, that you'll receive a $200 SiriusXM Rewards Visa prepaid card. Now stick around for bloopers, and let me remind you that if you're looking for flight instruction in a Cirrus SR20 or SR22, or are thinking of buying a new or slightly used Cirrus, please contact me early in the process so I can help you with that decision. And if you're looking at a new plane, I can help you get a free demo ride. I specialize in the Cirrus and work with people around the country. If you love the show, please show your friends how to find this podcast. Until next time, fly safely, have fun, and keep the blue side up.
About those, I'd have to dig into that a little bit.
That's fine. We can skip that. That's not a problem. Let's see. I've got. Hang on 1 second here.
Sure.
Just got to wait for an incoming call to go away on my iPhone, so I stopped hearing this noise in my ear.
I heard that. Yeah.
Oh, can you hear that over there?
No, you're fine now.
Yeah, it's like it's always something. There's always some little gotcha here. All right.